There was so much for the Calgary Flames to accomplish this year that I don't know if any of us expected the on-ice performance to match those expectations.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me here today. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Today, we're going to be revisiting some of the expectations heading into the season and kind of seeing if the Flames hit any benchmarks, including, individuals as well as the team as a whole. But before we dive into all that, please make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, because we are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. If you are returning and you're wondering where Nick is hosting Locked On Oilers through the postseason and will return to Locked On Flames whenever the Oilers get eliminated. But he will be back, but you're stuck with me for now. And the both of us spent a lot of time last summer and early fall discussing the expectations for this team. They were not going to be competitive. They were not going to be a contender. They were going to be a team that just needed to get through the season, and they could win games. That wasn't a question. It was a matter of how Craig Conroy and co managed the to-do list in front of them. And we all know that a majority of that to-do list was trading pending free agents, as well as declaring a direction and sticking to it. For a good portion of this season, it really felt like this team did not have a direction. They looked lost. And I don't think that they necessarily had to walk into practice on a random Wednesday and say, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do for the rest of the season. We're just going to tank, and that's that. Thank you so much for coming. See you out on the ice. That's not what declaring a direction means. To me, at least, it means the moves that the general manager makes are indicative of what he thinks the team is and what they are. And it didn't really feel like there was much going on there for a little bit. They traded Toffoli, and then they traded Zadorov, and then there was all the rumors about Noah Hanifin resigning, Elias Lindholm's extension still being up in the air. So it did not feel like they were going anywhere. And then finally it did. And of course, you had that Zadorov trade, and then you have the Lindholm trade, you have the Hanifin trade and the Tanev trade, right around the deadline. And this is your team. And they were clinging to a playoff spot, but there was no real expectation that they were going to make the playoffs this year or do anything with it. I think the biggest goal for me going into this season was, of course, Craig Conroy and how he kind of established himself as a first-time general manager, not only amongst the teams in the league, but with his players. And for him to not go out and sign egregious extensions, like paying Elias Lindholm $9 million for the next 7 years, I don't know any other way to shovel money into a furnace any faster. It's just wasting money. And they already have a lot of money tied up in players that are older than Lindholm, but not that much older. And Huska was a first-time NHL head coach. I think that there were reasonable expectations for him. We knew as fans what he was going to be working with. And it wasn't going to be anything spectacular, or nothing moved the needle this past off season to make any of us believe that this season was going to be different from 2022, 2023. And that's what it was. I think that he saw a group of guys that wanted to win. He knew that this team wasn't just going to roll over and die. It was going to take a lot for them to, they were still going to show up every day, regardless of the outcome from the day before or how many games are left. They were going to show up and play. And Huska did a great job, managing a lot of different types of players and different experience levels. I know that he obviously worked in the AHL for a while, so he had the skill set to work with those younger guys that are still being molded and adapting to being professional hockey players. And I would say that he did a really good job, and he stuck to his guns. Connor Zary ended up getting scratched, and that did a lot for him. He was not afraid to bench Jonathan Huberdeau. He did what he needed to do, and there were no coach is going to go through this season without questionable moments. It happens. It's natural. His fixation on Dryden Hunt really confuses a lot of people, but there's really not much you can do there. They were so far out of a playoff spot that playing Dryden Hunt over Matt Coronado wasn't going to do anything. But now you have, Coronado we're going to talk a little bit more about him later, so we won't go too far into that. But coming up next, we're going to talk about the road of uncertainty and kind of where people fell on this spectrum of good to bad, rule to drool to rule, however you want to look at it. And we will be right back after this break. But before that, I do want to take a second to talk to you guys about FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. I am someone that is incredibly superstitious. So last year I bet on the Rangers, and I ended up jinxing and putting Mika Zibanejad into a rut, into a drought. So I might just bet on some money lines, maybe the over for Winnipeg and Colorado. There's so much fun to be had. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. With Policygenius, you can find the life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius helps you compare options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. Easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. Your work life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. Even worse, it may not come with you if you leave your job. Policygenius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. They have no incentive to recommend one insurer over the other, so you can trust their guidance. Thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. Check life insurance off of your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnNHL or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonnNHL. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast wherever you get your favorite shows, and of course on YouTube as well, because we're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. This season, I feel like a lot of people, most if not all people, had very reasonable expectations going into this. When I talked to other people that cover the Flames, they were kind of all on the same page. Like, this team was not going to be a playoff team. They needed to have better goaltending. They needed to stay healthy and get more out of Jonathan Huberdeau. And most of those things happened. I would say that, you wanted Huberdeau to hit at least 75 points, and that didn't happen. He finished with 52 points. That's not acceptable for what he's making and the type of player that he is. And this is the second year where you've seen a decrease in points. And obviously you're going to see a decrease from 115 to the next season, but 65 points is absolutely bad. It's pretty bad. And then to drop to 52 points, it's tough. You're making $10.5 million now, and everyone loves to remind you at any given moment that you're making that. And he did have a tough start to the season. There's no denying that. Benching him for the third period against the Predators helped. He did not really find himself until January 1st. He went the entire month of December up until the 31st without a point. He could have gone the entire month, but he didn't, because he was able to collect a couple against the Flyers in that ridiculous, I think it was like a 5-2 game. Absolutely. It was so much fun. And everyone looked like they were having a lot of fun that that game. And you know what? We'll take it, because again, there's just so many things for this team to focus on, and to, like, so many hands in the pot. And you want everyone to enjoy themselves as much as they possibly can, because at the end of the day, this is their job, and it's not always an easy one. And Jacob Markstrom was not really expected to have a solid year. I think a lot of people expected him to have a better year, but weren't really sure how much better. So he finished the 2022-23 season with an .892 save percentage, which that's a significant drop from, the .922 from the year prior. And this year he sat at a .905, which honestly, like, that used to be really, like, meh goaltending. And now, as the years have kind of adjusted, that's kind of where, like, your average goaltenders are, around that mark. And that's just because of the way that I would say players lift the puck more now. Players are a little bit more creative when they score, and you're going to see different shot quality and shot quantity from different teams. But Markey did a pretty solid had a pretty solid performance this year, to the point where, people were really questioning if they should trade him. Mangiapane, Andrew. Andrew Mangiapane is the next player to get traded from this team. And it makes sense. It really stinks that he hasn't blossomed into an offensive monster that we thought we had that one season. But Nick has talked about it ad nauseum on this show. He would be a great third line center on a Stanley Cup contending team. He is the Blake Coleman of a future team. The way that Blake Coleman was so important to Tampa Bay in those 2 runs and their Stanley Cup wins. So, that's an important role to have. It's not that he's not a good player. There are just certain aspects of the Flames game that just he's not necessarily set up to succeed. And that stinks. If you have listened to this show for any amount of time, you know that I'm a Mangiapane fan, and you know how badly I've rooted for him and wanted him to succeed here. But it's just it's not happening, and that it's tough. I hope that Conroy does trade him. It would make the most sense. It would, do wonders at the trade deadline. So why not do it? Because he's not going to want to re-sign here come July next year. I also think that he didn't really look like himself at some points throughout the year. I thought that, I don't know. At some point he was dealing with an injury because he did miss, I think, like 5 or 6 games. So there was obviously something going on. But it still doesn't completely add up as to why it was such a down season, when I feel like when your both of your line mates have really great years, Blake Coleman having a career year, something has to be off for you as a player. The math was just not mathing. And coming up next, we are going to talk about the young children that are jumping and bursting onto the scene in Calgary as meaningful, impactful young guys that you're going to want around your organization for quite some time. And we will be back right after this quick break. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, view from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. I will be taking a trip to Yankee Stadium this summer, and I will 200% be using Gametime, because with Gametime, it is so easy to find tickets. The map on the app is super easy to use. It is a very friendly interface, and you have the flash deals with those are in-app exclusive deals to select seats ahead of time, ahead of the game or event. You get the all-in pricing. You get the view from your seats. It is such a great app to use, and just such a great resource to have at your fingertips. And I know that I will be using them not only for baseball, but of course, future Bruins playoff games as well. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss a show. I am very impressed by Connor Zary and Martin Pospisil. Zary was expected to be called up throughout the season, it was never going to be extended periods of time unless there were significant injuries. Well, Martin Pospisil was not even sniffing the NHL this year. I remember writing and saying, like, no, this kid needs another year in the AHL because he needs to play a healthy season. And he played a healthy season for the most part, just in the NHL. And I am very impressed. And it instilled a confidence in me that I have not had in Flames management for some time. Connor Zary ended up shifting to center towards the tail end of the season, and he was healthy scratched and came back with a whole new life, a whole new perspective. And he was so happy in his first media availability after getting scratched. You would have thought this kid had a hat trick the night before, and he was not up in the press box eating popcorn, watching his teammates. He ended up having 14 goals and 20 assists, and that is impressive. Number one, you have more goals than Jonathan Huberdeau, so stick taps for that. But also for a kid that has had a few injuries that has really kind of, I don't want to say derailed his development, but it's kind of, he's gone on a little bit of a side quest. And with the pandemic season too, being drafted in 2020, there were a lot of obstacles for Zary to get here. And it wasn't that he didn't look ready last year. He just, when you sometimes just need to put the chicken in a little bit longer, it's cooked, but 5 more minutes wouldn't hurt, just to make sure. A lot of people thought that that's what Zary needed. And he might have, but he did a great job this year, and he was a delight to watch. Martin Pospisil, I need to sit him down at a table and look across from him and ask him the hard questions. Why are you hitting people in vulnerable positions when you have had a number of conditions? You're 23 years old and have to play with a tinted visor. Your assistant coach had his career ended early due to a nasty hit due to concussions. And you talked all about how horrible, lonely, and emotionally and mentally taxing it was to recover by yourself away from everyone you knew. I know that he says, oh, I don't care what people think about me. That's great. I'm sure you don't care. But at some point, you have to start caring about the other people on the other end of your hits. And just because a hit is legal does not mean it is not dangerous or it's not going to impact a player's physical health. I don't know how many times we have to talk about it, but aside from his suspension, Pospisil really took a leap that no one expected. He was supposed to be in the AHL full time this year. There was no shot of him getting called up. Not because he was bad, but because he was not ready to see NHL time. Or so we thought. This is why I am fully okay with Trent Cull and the rest of the Wranglers organization. If they feel like trying something new, being creative, and Craig Conroy's okay, we got to call this guy up. Go ahead, go for it. Because you know what? You never know when someone might actually pop and blossom. And Pospisil just I guess was an early bloomer. He was an early bloomer in the NHL, and he had 8 goals, 16 assists. He played well. I just want to sit him down and knock some sense into him verbally, because we don't condone hitting and violence. But another player that had tremendous success in the AHL but didn't necessarily see the same success in the NHL would be Matthew Coronato. He had 9 points in 34 games in the NHL this season, and he was over a point per game in the AHL. This was his first full professional season. That boy came to Calgary last year with a button-down shirt that was 2 sizes too small. He wasn't ready to leave Cambridge, Massachusetts and come to Calgary. And this year he was ready, and it was a lot of fun watching him kind of get his footing, gain confidence, and do what he needed to do. Now, do I think he will probably start the season in the AHL next year? I don't know. We will revisit that after free agency. However, I do think he does need a little bit more time, probably another at least half a season to a full season of consistent top line minutes to build up the stamina and the work ethic it takes to play at a professional level rather than a 42-game college season. Dustin Wolf, the man, the myth, the legend. He had a very tough season in the NHL this year. Not only did he almost have a shutout in the final start against his hometown team, but he was playing behind some really horrendous defense towards the end of the season. He was called up after Vladar was going to undergo season-ending surgery. Respectfully, I think that was the right call. I wish it happened earlier. Dustin Wolf was 7-7-1. I know wins don't, they're not a good goalie stat, but through 15 games, I wish that the Flames let him play more. I wish that he had the opportunity to see more ice time and to get acclimated, to get comfortable at the NHL level, because I fully believe that that's where he's going to start the season next year, because there is no, at least right now, another backup goaltender for the Flames. It's as simple as that, and it's time for him to make the leap. I think that his on-ice performance is much better than what his stats say. I think that, the eye test does a lot for goaltenders. And I feel like with their blue liners, defensemen too, the stats only go so far. Because, with forwards, it's very easy to measure, and you can quickly pair that up with what you're seeing on the ice. But I feel like you don't really have true numbers, honest numbers for goaltenders and defensemen. But we're going to keep cruising through this off season, because we are 6 months away from any Calgary Flames hockey, but I will be here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. And I will be back tomorrow as we take a look at more of this Flames roster and what went well this season.